Welcome back to Simply Fujica, a place for budding and aspiring entrepreneurs. I do want to welcome you to this video, and if this is the first time that you've checked out my channel, I certainly want to welcome you and thank you for those returning for another week here at Simply Fujica. So today I'm especially excited because I am announcing my next webinar. My next webinar is scheduled for Saturday, October 16th. So for this webinar, I've put a lot of thought into what does it take to actually stand up your home care agency. So this is outside of getting licensed. This is outside of all of those things that you have to do in order to actually start your home care agency. A lot of you are reaching out to me. You haven't formed your LLCs. You have not thought about branding. You have not created your websites. And so I really want to think of this webinar as a home care in a box, if you will. I'm actually calling it Home Care 101. So for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I have put together a checklist. So you can envision us going down this checklist of what are those tasks, what are those things that you need to do in order to make sure that you are fully operating as a business. So again, this class is scheduled to be about an hour and a half, if you will. It is a one-time session and it will be on Saturday, October 19th. So if you want more information, the link for you to sign up will be in the video description. So I want to thank you all and I hope to see you there. By now, hopefully you've seen my short where I'm asking you all to push past fear. There's some reasoning behind why I put that short together. And that is just because it is so exciting to get licensed. It is so exciting to work towards something and then accomplish it. Something that is normal is challenges are going to arise in businesses. Obstacles are going to come up. What I'm noticing is sometimes those obstacles, especially as you're starting your businesses, those can sometimes deflate you. So in today's video, I want to discuss what are some challenges that you may face as a home care agency owner. So if that's something that you're interested in, and I hope it is, then stay tuned. So for this particular topic, I have put together 10 tips that I'm going to go ahead and make it a two-part series. So in today's video, we'll be discussing 5 challenges, and then next week I'll follow up with the final 5 challenges. So with that said, let's get started. So the first challenge that we're going to be talking about today is, you guessed it, recruitment challenges. It shouldn't be a shock to a lot of you. There is a nationwide shortage of professional, reliable caregivers. So a potential solution that I put together for this first one is really niching down the type of caregivers that you are attracting to your home care agency. Now, some of you will say, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to get anyone at this point. Well, let me challenge that for a moment. If you kind of niche down what it is that you actually need, that makes it easier to try to attract them. So I will give you an example. As an employer, I have been invited to participate in job fairs. I've noticed that there's an influx of people returning back to the workforce. Okay, so these people might be a little bit kind of gun shy because a lot of them have not gone back to work since the pandemic. A lot of them have been outside of the workforce because of other personal challenges, such as having their children and now re-entering back into the workforce. And so your agency can come up with some type of internal training to help them transition back to the workforce, and more importantly, your agency. The reason why I say this, the cost of doing this is pretty much next to nothing, because it is you and your agency that's putting together this training to ensure that anyone who is incoming, anyone who is new to your agency, is receiving the proper amount of attention and training in order for them to be successful at your agency. So return to work caregivers is just one niche. Maybe you want to focus on grads that are just completing their caregiver programs. Not only are these people excited to get into the workforce and to actually put their education at use, but because they don't have that level of experience some of our caregivers bring, then this will be a cost savings for your agency because their salary is going to be a bit lower versus someone who's been doing this for 5 or more years. So again, those are just 2 examples of how you can niche down what it is that you're trying to attract to your agency. The second challenge that I'm going to speak to today is retention issues. So not only is it a hard time attracting these particular caregivers to your agencies, but now we're having a hard time hanging on to them. And I would say this is twofold. Number one, this is a very physically challenging job. And so sometimes people think that providing care is going to be easier than it actually is. And then, you do have a lot of home care agencies, and the caregiver knows that. So I always tell people a potential solution to this is create a program, create a position that your caregivers are proud to be a part of. Create a job that people don't want to leave. So how do you do that? Well, making sure you have an excellent training program. Not only making sure that the recruiting experience is good, that their actual employee life cycle is wonderful at your job. It's hard for people to leave jobs when they're very excited to come into work, when they like the job that they're going into. The third obstacle that I'm going to address here is training and education gaps. Now, this is a lot of times speaking to our caregivers who bring to agencies tons of experience. So even though they have those skills and that training that they're bringing to the table, a lot of them have not had ongoing training to address some of the new skills that are needed to be successful today. Right? So what we want to do is make sure you all have heard me talk about having a wonderful orientation that will include training for your caregivers. But what about the ongoing need for training? What about the new skills that are needed in order to be successful in this industry? So the way you can address this is to ensure that you have different variations and options for your caregiver to continue training. This is setting your caregivers up for success to ensure that they're delivering that high quality service that you and the caregiver and the client desires. The fourth challenge you've heard me talk a lot about on this channel, and that's burnout. Again, I started off the top of this video talking about how physically exhausting some of this work can be, especially if you're doing it day in and day out. One potential solution that I have here is just ensuring, again, training, making sure that people are lifting appropriately. They know the right ways to lift, the right ways to take care of themselves physically, to ensure that they're able to provide that high care, but that they're also taking care of themselves. So as an employer, you can see when is the last time a person has had a day off. Encourage them. If it's been a minute, you're noticing you're going over their time records, suggest a day, suggest a personal day. I know I used to call them, when I used to work a actual position, I used to call them mental health days. There were times that I would ask to take a mental health day. And so this should be, again, this is part of your retention effort, is making sure that a person feels cared about, that you care about them beyond them taking care of your clients, right? So you just want to make sure that they're taking time off. One thing that I've seen a lot of people do is maybe have communities of exercise groups to ensure that we're taking care of our bodies, that we're fit to take care of these clients. So just a couple of ways that we can talk about avoiding burnout. There are so many ways, but those are the two that I'm focusing on today. The fifth point and the last point that I'm going to discuss today is maintaining a workload balance. So this is kind of a tie-in to the fourth tip that we just discussed a moment ago, but we really want to make sure, especially our high-producing caregivers, when you have someone who is high-producing, that's part of it, is, they want to give 110%. They're always going, they're always showing how wonderful they are, but there's a price to pay for that type of go mentality. Right? So we just want to make sure that we help people, if you can put together a calendar of special events in the caregivers' lives, so maybe birthdays, anniversaries, things that they like to celebrate, so that way you can incorporate those days, those requests into a monthly calendar, then that will ensure that you can that at least you've tried to make sure that people can have important days home with their families, right? Have times where people can volunteer to have time off if you have enough staff to cover those absences, right? So just again, just making sure that you are suggesting these things, that you are implementing these practices so people can feel as though they have an adequate work-life balance. Okay, so that is the last tip that I have for this video. What items did I miss? We will have part 2, so make sure you come back next week for part 2, where I have 5 more tips that we're going to discuss as it relates to challenges. So not only are we talking about challenges in this video, but I'm giving you some potential solutions to work through those challenges. So I want to make sure you heard me at the top of this video talk about my new webinar that's coming up Saturday, October 19th. There are other services that I offer. So you want to make sure you check out my website, which is simplyfujica.com, to check out what those services are. And if you want to reach out to me because you feel like you need assistance, definitely reach out to me at simplyfujica@yahoo.com. So if you enjoyed today's content, the last thing I have for you today is make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then hit that bell notification so that you're notified every time I release a new video. That's all I have for you all today. Stay blessed. I am so excited to share that I have published my first book, Goodnight Boo. Goodnight Boo is not only a dream come true, but it's essentially a love letter to my first child. It's really talking about the joys of wanting to have a child and finally having that child. So I really do think this is something that all mothers can relate to. We certainly love our babies. We want the best for our babies, and this book celebrates that. So if you would like to support me and purchase a copy of the book, the link is in the description. As always, I want to thank you for your support.